بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Dear brothers and sisters, today it will be a refutation of Mohammad Yasir's challenge to the Salafi, to the Ahle Hadith, about their differences. So it's going to be a small refutation of it. Obviously, I won't do a lengthy refutation, but inshallah in the next series of lecture, I will bring a more detailed refutation. But this one is a short refutation of his claims made against the Ahle Hadith and all his false claims and propaganda. And unfortunately, he was even using filmy dialogues. I don't know, maybe in his youth he watched too much Amitabh Bachchan or Dharmendra and shaking on the tables, Michael Lal and like Al Pacino. I don't know if he watched too many movies, but we take these things seriously. You know, the deen is not a joke, and inshallah we will challenge him at the end, inshallah, in a further lecture to reply to the kufr and shirkiyat of their Sheikh al-Akbar, the greatest kafir, al-Shaitan al-Akbar, Muhyiddin ibn Arabi, because they're still selling the Ubandis is Fusus al-Hikam and propagate it, despite the fact that Ibn Arabi, who's been declared kafir not only by Salafi but many of the Ashari Maturidi scholars, leading Hanafi and Shafi scholars, in his books he says the mushrik of the people of Nuh will not be drawn into water of love, and he even praises them, and he criticized Prophet Nuh alayhi salam that he didn't do da'wah to them properly, and tanqis of the Anbiya is kufr, as Mullah Ali Qari al-Hanafi said. And as well we will see inshallah in a specific lecture in which I will challenge Mohammad Yasir, because he's in a mood of giving challenges, to explain this, what Dawood Qaisari said about the seal of sainthood, Khatamul Wilaya. Dawood Qaisari, he said, Ibn Arabi said in this chapter that Abu Bakr on the judgment, in his Anqa Mughrib, in his book, Ibn Arabi said, on the day of judgment, Abu Bakr will be under my banner like he was under the Prophet's banner. So inshallah in a further lecture we will challenge him on all these specific, not any other. He brings another quote to he has to explain this quote with 5 explanations of Fusus al-Hikam on the kufr of Ibn Arabi, and inshallah we will reply to his ridiculous and silly challenge, because he is accusing his opponents for things they don't believe and they never claimed. That's why at the beginning he didn't quote any of our scholars' books, and likewise before he accuses Ibn Taymiyyah of saying things that Abu Osman ad-Darimi said. He didn't quote Ibn Taymiyyah. Then he accused Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah of believing in a poem that the Prophet would sit on the throne, while it was Imam Daraqutni's poem. Ibn Hafiz Dhahabi quoted it and referred it to Imam Daraqutni. So these people, you know, we can see the level of academy and the seriousness in this matter. You know, they can refute Ibn Taymiyyah, but they can't refute Usman Darimi, who was a student of Imam Ahmad, Imam al-Buwaiti, Imam Ishaq ibn Rahawai, Imam Shafi'i, many others of the Aimma, and he was a great Siqa. Even Ibn Subki praises him and consider him as a great Shafi scholar, Imam Usman al-Darimi. So these people, they insult the scholars. One can refer to my lectures about the Asma Wasif, the real true creed of the Salaf. So this is Mohammad Yasir's technique and method, because he can't confront the true dawah, and the Deobandis are now getting desperate because we're exposing the tasawwuf, we're exposing the kashf al-qubur, sitting on graves, muraqabah, the black magic, the khurafat, the naked saints rule the world, the saints, the majzub people, they decide who will be the ruler, al-Khidra. He was in the army of the British. We expose all the kufriyat, you know, the Bear Shah, who was a next, and the woman would come to him, and these Abdal ruling the world, and the stories of the Ghaus, Qut Abdal. So because we're exposing them, so they're getting desperate, and instead of refuting our claims, bringing from our books and scholars, they just accuse us of things we never said. You know, where did Ahle Hadith scholars say that there are no legitimate differences between the Imams and the Tabi and the Sahaba? You know, because saying such would mean that the Sahaba who differed, some of them, you know, did not follow Quran Sunnah. We never made such statements, you know. And you know, he said, oh, they don't follow the Imams, they don't follow fiqh. Actually, we don't do taqlid, you know. And you know, that's why they're confusing these matters. You know, we study books of fiqh. You know, the Ahle Hadith in India, Pakistan, there's some of them, they study Qaduri, Hidayah. Now there's many madaris and Jamia, they study Bidayatul Mujtahid, which contains not only the sayings of the four Imam, the sayings of the Zahiriyya school of thought, and as well the sayings of the other Imams of the Salaf. So we learn the saying of fiqh of the Aslaf, of all Imams, but we do not restrict to one Imam and one school of thought and exaggerate about one Imam like he almost received revelation from the sky. We don't elevate one Imam to the level of prophets that we make our obedience to him unconditional, and you know, we restrict and revile the other Imams, like some of the Hanafi Muqallidin have been saying, like inshallah we will see in further lectures on taqlid in Nurul Anwar. There's Imam Shafi Nauzubillah, he said something he won't be forgiven on Judgment Day, you know, for judging with a one witness and a yamin. And this is the saying of the majority of the scholars of Imam Malik, of Imam Shafi. Maliki majority scholars of Hijaz, this is their madhab. So that's Imam Shafi won't be forgiven, they curse the other Imams, they reduce them. So this is the history of the Muqallidin, you know. We not, I mean, the Deobandi, the pictures they're drawing is taqlid is nice, and Ahle Hadith are creating fitna, they're misguiding people. If we read their tarikh, it's a dark tarikh. You know, they used to fight between each other, they used to curse each other, they used to debate, and they used to, attack themselves, they used to pray. We're going to see, inshallah, in the books of Fatwa Shami and others, they would pray 4 different congregations in the same masjid in the Haram in Syria and Egypt. That was the practice 100 years ago almost. You know, so this is their, everything is, the fairy tales that they're propagating. So we have to refute them, you know. The Ahle Hadith scholars, our motto when we say we follow Quran and Sunnah, it means that we, when we fiqh, in the matters of fiqh, we do not take anyone's sayings. If we find it against Quran Sunnah, we do not take it above the Quran Sunnah. But obviously we study the sayings of the fuqaha, we study the book of Imam Shafi, in our madaris we study Muwatta Imam Malik, which is a book of fiqh. It has the sayings of fiqh of Imam Malik and the fuqaha of Medina. Likewise, I mean, many of madaris, they study Hidayah Qaduri, and we study other books of fiqh. You know, saying we learn books of usul al-fiqh, we learn usul of fiqh, but what we favor, I mean, obviously we have books of comparative fiqh, like fiqh sunnah, it is taught in some of our madaris, Rawdatun Nadiyah, which is a book of comparative fiqh, and Bidayatul Mujtahid, because we don't want to inculcate to people ta'assub, like these people, what they have done and divided the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ in 4 groups, each other won't marry each other, and the Hanafi Shafi would curse each other and forbid praying behind each other. So where did the Ahle Hadith say that when we say Quran and Hadith, it means there is no legitimate difference in fiqh? You know, because there are different matters, and anybody who studies the books of fiqh can see them. There are some matters in which are not in the Quran and Sunnah. And the Sahaba, when they did ijtihad, like the inheritance of the grandfather and the brothers, if they only remain alive, this case is not present in the Quran. So they do analogy. Some do analogy of the father with the grandfather. So they say, okay, the grandfather is going to take the place of the father by analogical reasoning. And then, so the father is going to cut the brothers. Other will say no, because the grandfather can't be like the father, because if the grandfather takes all the money, after his son will have the money, meaning the cousins, and the uncles will get the money, and his brothers won't get anything if it's because his father's dead. So when the grandfather will die, all the money will go to his uncle, and he and his brothers will be great sons. They will be cutted. by the uncles. So at the end, the cousins will get his money of the person who died without his brothers. So they said this analogy of the father with the grandfather is not accurate. So they gave half to the father, half to the grandfather, to the brothers, half to the grandfather. So obviously there are ijtihadi masail like this on which there is a legitimate ijtihad. Likewise, there are issues, both sides have hadith, but they interpret it differently. You know, Imam Ahmad, he took the hadith about leaving prayer to kufr. He interpreted them to mean that they become apostate, the one who leaves a prayer. The other, they interpreted them, and with the same hadith, they said, no, he's a fasiq and this and that. So someone can have a hadith, two contradict hadiths. They have different ways of reconciling them, like making the ablution when touching the penis. One hadith says you don't need to do it; it's only a part of your body. Other says you must do wudu. So some scholars that join them. If one does it with desire, then it will cancel the ablution. If it doesn't, others they say we have to give preference to this hadith because the one who narrated, he became Muslim after the other one. Some they took this one. I mean, there are different ways, and you know, like praying to, urinating towards Qibla and this. So some people they say, if there's a wall in between, that's fine, it's allowed. Some they say no, it's makruh. Some they say it's haram. So obviously, in some matters in which you have contradictory ahadith, like fasting on the day. Some hadiths forbidding fasting on the day of Saturday. Some others saying you can fast one day, leave one day. And the Prophet fasted. So some will say we have to favor those forbidding. Those say we can reconcile between them. Imam Malik weakened the one forbidding to fast on Saturday specifically, saying it's ma'lul. So obviously scholars have legitimate on the same text. But there are other issues in which the Imam did not have a hadith. You know. And in such case, you know, on such cases, we say you must follow the authentic hadith. If the saying of the four famous imam and the others say if the hadith are authentic, this is my saying. But unfortunately, the muqallidun, what they did is they tried to distort these hadiths that oppose their imam, and they say, oh no, it must be either abrogated or they're gonna go for far-fetched interpretation of the hadith. So this is what we oppose: blind taqlid, ta'assub. Else we never forbade. We study the books of fiqh. If someone wants to study Hanbali books of fiqh, Shafi books of fiqh, the books of Maliki, but we say don't learn the dalil of the scholars with their dalil. That is fine. You know, but if you say no, whatever when you study whatever hadith I'm going to say against the imam, I will stick to imam I'm saying because for this or that taqleed and this, my imam is the best. Imam Malik is the best scholar. Nobody can match him. Like the Maliki say, he knows everything. He's the most. And Hanafi, we know their ghulu, like he was praying in Dur al-Mukhtar. We're going to see all these narrations. He prayed 100 rakat and he heard a voice saying all your jamaat will be forgiven. And when Isa al-Islam will come, he will judge by the Hanafi fiqh and all the fairy tales and all their fake hadiths mention about the fazail of Imam Abu Hanifa is the lamp of the Ummah and others. So we study. I mean, if we said, you know, you only follow Quran, Hadith, we wouldn't teach the books of fiqh. We learn the books of fiqh. We respect them, but we don't give them the same authority. The fatwa of a mujtahid imam, we don't give it the same authority as the book and the sunnah. And we say the final authority is the revelation, is the book and sunnah. And then differences of scholars, the final authority is the Quran and Hadith. And obviously, our own scholars, they differ. Some Ahle Hadith scholars, they say the one who abandons prayer is kafir. Some they say he's not kafir, you know. In India, Pakistan, Abdullah Ropri will say it's kafir. The other, they will say no, it's duna kufr, it's little kufr. On other issues, they will differ. You know, when to reduce prayer, when how much is the time. All these legitimate differences, they existed. So when these differences, they exist among our own scholars, how can we say that if you follow Quran, Hadith, there can't be any differences? Our scholars, they've published many books. Raful Malam of Ibn Taymiyyah, Iqaf ala Sabab Ikhtilaf of Muhammad Hayat Sindi, in Urdu and Arabic, we published them. Ilam Muqin, we translated Muhammad Junagri, one great Indian scholar, translated into Urdu, and it mentions the legitimate. I mean, some they have differences based on lugha. Some differences are based on how to combine the hadith. Some are based on different rules. But all these have different. There are different. Some of these are legitimate, but not all of them are legitimate. You know, if one of the imams it is clearly against the hadith, he's saying against the hadith, you know, then we say you have to follow the Quran and hadith. And when Muhammad Yasir, you know, because these people, they like to bring confusion, talbis, deception. So unfortunately, he said, oh, all the differences come from the Sahaba. You know, obviously some differences in the mazhab will come from the differences among Sahaba in fiqh, but some of them, they do not come. You know, can any person who studied a book of fiqh from A to Z, from the beginning to the end, can say that all differences among the fuqaha result from the difference of Sahaba? This is fools by themselves, because when the fuqaha, they debated between themselves on fiqh issues, they didn't say, oh, my saying is one of the Imam, yours is one of Sahaba, yours is one of Sahaba, so, you know, we're all right. No. When Imam Shafi used to dispute with Muhammad ibn Hassan on his opinion, he would say, this hadith says this, you're right, saying this, you should take this hadith like this. Imam Malik used to differ with Imam Lays ibn Sa'd in Egypt. They used to write to each other, they used to exchange ideas. But none of them said, oh no, you're following one opinion of Sahaba, you're following one. You know, sometimes some Imam didn't reach a hadith, some they understood it differently. So they used, Imam Shafi'i, when he was in Iraq, when he went to Egypt, he changed many of his opinions because he learned new things. And then based on this, he interpreted the other, or he changed his views. So what I'm saying is none of the Sahaba, when they differed, and what is, you know, they even criticized. I mean, I'm going to mention them later. They even criticized, sometimes the Ahlul Rai, the scholars of Hijaz, they criticized Imam Abu Hanifa and others for their tricks, for the fatwa of trick. You know, Imam Bukhari in his Sahih Bukhari in his chapter of trick, he said some of the people, they allowed treachery between the Muslims. And you know, everybody, I mean, all the explanators of Sahih Bukhari, they say he was referring to Imam Abu Hanifa. We say here he has got ijtihad. May Allah forgiveness upon him. But what I'm saying is this fatwa of tricks, you know, none of the Sahaba gave them. You know, so when they, you know, they used to criticize the Ahlul Rai for some of the fatwa, or they say, oh no, they're not taking the hadith, they're taking the fatwa based on Rai. You know, they didn't say, oh, you Imam Abu Hanifa's fatwa of tricks, they're based on sayings of Sahaba. None of the Salaf you said this, you know, because obviously some of the differences are based on different Sahaba, but some of them are based on the Imam's ijtihadat, and they came with opinions that were criticized by the others, you know. And I will mention some, you know, some books of the Salaf. So this is Sunan Tuhfatul Ahwati with Sunan Tirmizi. So we have in the chapter of Hajj, we have a hadith about the Prophet ﷺ doing ish'ara of the camels, you know, ish'ara al-budni. You know, when the camels would go to the Hajj, those reserved for sacrifice, what they will blow with they will make a hole on their top, so it will be bleeding, and they will have a red mark, a little red mark, so people would know that these camels are reserved for sacrifice. You know, so one of them would be lost. The people who found them will send them back to Mecca to be sacrificed. You know, so in this hadith, which is narrated in Muslim and Abu Dawud and in Tirmizi, you know, it is said from Ibn Abbas, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قلد نعلين وشر الهدية في شق الأيمن بذي الحليفة. You know, so the Prophet he wore the shoes and on these animals, and he did ish'ar of them, you know, he made them bleed on their top, you know, on their back is camel. So this is the hadith. And قال أبو عيسى meaning Imam Tirmidhi, hadith Ibn Abbas, hadith Hasan Sahih, this hadith is Hasan Sahih. والعمل على هذا عند أهل العلم من أصحاب Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he said the action is upon this hadith among the companion of the people of knowledge from the companion of the Prophet and others. Yaran al-ishar, they see ishar, meaning making the camel bleed from the top with a knife, as correct. And this is the saying of Thawri, Ash-Shafi, Ahmad, Ishaq. And he said, قال سمعت يوسف بن يسير يقول سمعت وكيعا يقول هنا روى هذا الحديث قال لا تنظروا إلى قول أهل الرأي في هذا فإن الإشارة سنة وقولهم بدعة. So there he narrated, you know, there is narration coming from Imam Waki. Imam Waki was a student of Imam Abu Hanifa, but then he took the school of Ahle Hadith. and left the Ahle Rai, he said, do not look about this, meaning on the topic of Ishar, to the saying of the people of Rai, meaning the people of Kufa, Iraq, because Ishar is a sunnah, making the camel bleed on the top, and their saying is a bid'ah, is an innovation. So no, he didn't say, oh, their saying comes as well from Sahaba, these are both ijtihadat from Sahaba. No, he condemned their saying it is opposing this authentic hadith. So and then there's another one. قال سمعت أبا سائب يقول كنا عند وكيع. We were, Abu Sa'ib said, we were sitting with Waki', and فقال لرجل عنده ممن ينظر في رأي. He said to a man among them who was studying Rai, meaning the school of thought from the people of Iraq, and he said to him, أشعر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Prophet performed Ishar. ويقول أبو حنيفة هو مثلة, and Abu Hanifa said this is a mutilation, because Imam Abu Hanifa and Ibrahim Nakhi, they will forbid this, saying, oh, it's a cruelty on the animal, it's a mutilation is haram. But the problem is, there are always exceptions to a general ruling. And for the little pain the animal has, he will cicatrize, but there is a greater benefit. And the Sharia looks after the benefit. So little pain, sometimes in the Sharia it is allowed. So, and when it comes authentically from the Prophet ﷺ, all the people, all the Imams acted upon it, the Sahaba Tabi'in, then Imam Abu Hanifa, if he's saying muslatun, it is there's no hadith supporting his view, so we have to take according to Imam Waqi the saying according to the hadith, and the saying of Ahle Rai is a bid'ah. And then the person to whom he said فقال رجل, the person said, but فإنه قد روي عن إبراهيم النخعي أنه قال الإشعار مثلة. And then when Imam Waqi said to this person looking at Rai, that the Prophet did Ishar, and the saying of and Imam Abu Hanifa is saying it is mutilation, he said, but Imam Ibrahim ibn Nakhi, Imam Abu Hanifa's teacher, he's saying as well that Ishar is a muslah. And he said, فَرَأَيْتُ وَكِيعًا غَضِبَ غَضْبًا شَدِيدًا. I saw Waqi becoming extremely angry. وَقَالَ أَقُولُ لَكَ قَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم وَتَقُولُ قَالَ Ibrahim. I am saying to you, the Prophet said such, and you said to me, Ibrahim. ما حقق بأن تحبس ثم لا تخرج حتى تنزع عن قولك هذا. He said, what you deserve is to be imprisoned until you leave this saying of yours. This, you should remain in jail until you act upon the hadith and you leave this saying. So this is one example among the Salaf. I mean, the Salaf, they have so many other books in which they condemn the opinions of others, saying it has no dalil. And Imam Shafi argued a lot, and he refuted. They refuted other Imams, Ibn Abi Shayba and others. Radala Muhammad ibn Hassan in his Kitab and others, Radala Abi Hanifa, Imam Ibn Abi Shayba. So they refuted Imam Abu Hanifa, saying, look, his saying is contrary to hadith, we should not act upon his saying. So this is Imam Waqi saying, the student of Imam Abu Hanifa. And there are many similar cases. Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim mentioned hundreds of them in his I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in. He's a great Hanbali scholar, in which the muqallidin of the mazahib, they don't leave, they'd rather, to find a strange ta'wil to the hadith instead of the saying of their imam. And even Shah Waliullah condemned the muqallidin for doing this. Muhammad Yasir, he also said this, some of these muqallidin, they elevate their Abul Hasan Kabir Sindi, they elevate their imams to the level of prophets. So all this Imam Shah Ismail Delvi as well, he also said some of the people they follow, the way they follow their imams is looking to the Christians, and they have a share of shirk in it. So obviously in some matters there is a legitimate difference. We never said we can't differ. We Ahle Hadith, we differ. Some after ruku they will put hand on chest, some won't. Many other cases, in the prayer, some will say the one who reaches ruku with the imam, his qira will count, the others say no. and many other issues. The Ahlul Hadith differ. Imam Ibn Taymiyyah in his Qawaid Nurani, he said, oh, this is the thing of most Ahle Hadith. Some Ahle Hadith said this, but some others of Ahle Hadith, they said this. So the Ahle Hadith differing in fiqh. This has always been the case in books of fiqh. It's not something we never denied. That there is no anybody who studies Sunan Tirmizi and other books of fiqh will see the sayings of the Imam, saying of some Sahaba they said this, some Sahaba they said this, some Tabi'i they said this. So obviously this is a well-known fact, and we don't attribute ignorance to the scholars, but we'll say in some matters there is ijtihad. Both have got hadith, both have got different interpretation of the same hadith about leaving prayer. But in some cases, like in the case of the Muslim, like others, one has a hadith. Maybe the hadith of Isha didn't reach Imam Abu Hanifa. We have good opinion. This is what Abdul Hayy Luqnavi and others said. Maybe on many cases when Imam Abdul Hayy Luqnavi left the Hanafi Mazhab, he said maybe these hadith did not reach Imam Abu Hanifa. And then this is the muqallidin. Because we don't know if Imam Abu Hanifa had the hadith or not. His followers, they said this is our mazhab. When the hadith reaches them, they don't want to act on the hadith, and that's the problem of taqlid. And then they justify their rules on taqlid. So there are many similar cases to Isha'ar, like I've mentioned in my refutation of Mumtazul Haq, like the forbiddance, like the taqlid of the ghanam as well, putting a rope. The Prophet would taqlidul ghanam, he would make a necklace with shoes for the ghanam, for the sheep's reserved for sacrifice to Mecca. And Imam Abu Hanifa, he doesn't allow it because it's creating pain to the animals, and some others, they wouldn't allow it. But when the hadith comes, we have to favor the hadith upon the reasoning. Maybe Imam Abu Hanifa and the others who forbade it, the hadith didn't reach them. But do the muqallidin, can they quote one? They say everything comes, from the ikhtilaf Sahaba. All four schools come from Sahaba. On taqlid al-ghanam, can they bring any hadith of any narration from any of the Sahaba that some of them refused it or said it is suffering on the animal? Likewise, forbiddance to pray witr on the camel, which I quoted in my lecture on taqlid against Mumtazul Haq. There's the Prophet in Bukhari Muslim, he was praying witr on his camel, and Ibn Umar would pray on his camel. Sometimes he would come out. Can they bring one Sahaba saying it is forbidden to pray witr on the camel? Likewise, 1 year exile, when the one who's non-married, he does zina, the muhsin, according to the narration in Sahih Muslim, he should be lashed 100 times, and the man should be exiled 1 year. And it says after Imam Tirmizi, he said after narrating this hadith that all the Khulafa Rashidin acted upon it. So can they bring? And the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa is that the exile of 1 year, they don't do it. While all the other madhab, they do it. So can they bring any of the Sahaba who said when the man does zina, you don't exile him for 1 year? So this is another example, and there are many other examples. Even Imam Abdul Hayy Luqnavi said that clear narrations that when you travel you can do combine Zuhr and Asr and Maghrib and Isha, and the many narration, what the tawilat of the Ahnaf. He says, they say, he prayed them close to each other, Imam Tahawi and others. But he said, how can we say this while many of them clearly mention that he prayed Maghrib after the time of Isha started, and he prayed Dhuhr after the time of Asr has, clear narrations, which cannot be, and so many about combining the prayers in travel. And likewise, the hadith which is in Bukhari Muslim, that Prophet whoever catches 1 rakah before Tulu Shams, before the sun rises, he has catch the Fajr prayer, and whoever catches 1 rakah before the Ghurub Shams, before the time of Maghrib, he has caught the Asr. So what it means, he has caught the prayer. It means if someone started, like 15 minutes before the sun rises, he started his Fajr, and he prayed like for half an hour, and he finished his prayer after the sun has risen, his prayer is correct. This hadith is in Bukhari Muslim, is clear. And likewise for Asr, if he started 15 minutes before or 10 minutes before the Ghurub Shams, the dispersion of the sun, and he prayed, let's say, for 15 minutes, and he finishes prayer after the Azan of Maghrib, his prayer is valid. But the Ahnaf, they say no. for Asr it will be valid, for Fajr no, and they don't have any hadith contradicting this one. They have to far-fetched interpretation. They resort, they're funny and ridiculous, some of them, because the Asr time it was started in a makruh time, so it can be carried on in a makruh time. But the Fajr one, the one who started before Tulu Shams, it wasn't in a makruh time, so this one will be batil. So they resort to some strange analogical reasoning. And many of the fuqaha Ahnaf, they invented some Mu'tazili rules, Isa ibn Aban, that the Sahabi, if he's ghair faqih, we don't accept. Some others, they've established other rules. So the problem is, this is the problem, when they clear-cut a hadith, and they don't, and they, instead of accepting this hadith, they behave like our Imam must know all hadith. The other Imam, they might miss, they say the others, they might have missed this hadith. But for saying this truth about their Imam, because they've been brainwashed, our Imam is the most knowledgeable, he knows everything. And at the same time, sometimes they leave his saying to take his student's saying, which is contradictory. But this is how it is, unfortunately. Likewise, in the, the problem is how they do, like in Bashar Kashmiri. There was because the Ahnaf, they forbid to pray one witr like all the others do, and they even themselves agree, in Anwar Satya, that it was the mazhab of some of the Sahaba, the Ibn Abbas, Ibn Umar, they allowed praying one witr separately from the two. So when they acknowledge that some of the Sahaba allowed it, and after that it's forbidden because Imam Abu Hanifa said, so are they not putting Imam Abu Hanifa among the Sahaba who allowed it? But what is on the one witr, there is a narration, because normally there are so many narration. Hafiz ibn Hajar mentioned that the Prophet ﷺ prayed 2 rak'ah, and he gave salam, and after he prayed one witr, but they say, oh no, salam means tahajjud, they extrapolate it. The salam means tahajjud, meaning he did tahajjud and he raised up again. But in one narration narrated by Imam al-Hakim, it says he prayed 2 rak'ah, gave salam, he spoke to someone after he prayed one witr. And Shah Kashmiri said none of the Hanaf could reply, this hadith sanad is qawi. None of them could reply to this hadith. And he spent, 10, 12, 13 years finding an answer. And he said, I found one, but he didn't mention it in his explanation of Tirmizi or Bukhari. So this is the problem. When someone spent 10, 12 years to refute a clear hadith going against the Imam, this is the sayings that lead to shirk, elevating the Imams to the level of Prophet and considering almost like they're ma'soom, infallible. So we don't say don't follow. We say study, benefit from the Imams, but don't raise their sayings to the saying of the Quran and Sunnah. And Quran and Sunnah is the final authority over the sayings of their Imam. And when we study comparative fiqh, we obviously some scholars are going to differ on issues, but you take the opinion that convinces you. If you're convinced that the one who lives prayer is more authentic, you take these things among Ahle Hadith. If you believe the other one, that's fine. If you believe one things of the differences among Ahle Hadith in fiqh, there are many, like other fuqaha. So we never, Muhammad Yasir said we never claimed such. We never claimed as well there's no differences in fiqh between Ahle Hadith. So just to mention, there's this book Ikhtilaf Bain al-Aimatul Ahnaf of Ismatul Thaqib, a former Deobandi who became Ahle Hadith. He just mentioned 250 differences just in chapter of purification and prayer between the 4 Imams of the Ahnaf, Imam Abu Hanifa, Muhammad ibn Hasan Shamani, Qadi Abu Yusuf and Zufar. These 4 Imams, just in 2 chapters, and mentioned in the book Hidayah. So they themselves have so many differences, and some late scholars, they said this saying is most correct, some others will say sometimes this is the qawl mufta bihi. So they say we're ghair muqallid. Alhamdulillah, we're proud to be ghair muqallid. But if you look at the differences in your books, Fuqaha, the Aimah of Balkhiz, Open Fatwa Qazi Khan Bazaz, they've outgone I don't know how many 10 sayings for one. The Aimah of Bukhara said these Imams, in some issues, new one coming, they've got so many sayings. So, blaming the Ahle Hadith for differing in fiqh, and we never claimed such, that there's no difference. So, and they've got the Mamati as well, these people. Shifa Sudur, fi taqi hadm simaman fil qubur of Muhammad Yasir Nelvi, and it has the signature of Tahir Panjpiri, Ghulamullah Khan at the end, signatures of the main Mamati scholars. Sayyidina Ayatollah Shah Bukhari, Muhammad Tahir Panjpiri, Ghulamullah Khan Saab, and many others leading Mamati scholars, they mentioned so many books, 15, 20 major books of Hanafi fiqh, which said the dead cannot hear. And the Hayati, they oppose most fuqaha of their own mazhab. They leave it for the sayings of other school of thought that the dead can hear, so they can justify going and do kashf al-qubur and ask the dead for intercession. So and even Muhammad Yasir Nilvi, he mentioned Rashid Ahmad Gangohi, who is the second Imam of the Deobandi after Qasim Nanodvi. He mentioned in his Arabic Shara on Bukhari or Tirmizi that the saying of the Imam Abu Hanifa is that the dead cannot hear. So don't you trust your Imam Rashid Ahmad Gangohi? Why do you leave the saying of Imam Abu Hanifa and his istidlal, his argumentation from the Quran? Why you adopt it, So when we bring authentic hadith, no, Imam Abu Hanifa must have a dalil which said to the 30 months for the period of the milk drink breastfeeding, it should be 2 years. No, Imam Abu Hanifa must have a dalil. We don't know it, but he must have, he was a this. But when it comes to the issues on which, you do your bid'at and shirkiyat and khurafat, and you Sufi Imam of the Sufi Imam oppose this because their religion is all based on graves, sitting on graves, muraqab on graves, and the dead coming back from the grave and ruling the world from his whatever. Fairy tales you have about the grave, he never dies. The Ashik never dies. Imdadullah Maki said is present in some of their English translated books by Sheikh Chist. So basically, why do they leave the Imam Abu Hanifa? About the dead hearing. And on this case, the Mamati are saying, we're better Hanafi than you. We're following our Imam, Adam. Oh, so after, they've got the issue of the Mamati, but this will require a separate lecture to talk about the Mamati and all the sayings of the Hanaf. Now, Muhammad Yasir said, Zubair Ali Zai, rahimahullah, he said that there are 8 groups of Salafi in Attak. But what this Muhammad Yasir, may Allah guide him, failed to mention that these differences between the 8 groups of Ahle Hadith, it is not based on our methodology, on our rules and principles. The rules and principles of Ahle Hadith are well known. These differences are political differences. Some of the Markazi Jamiat al-Hadith, they will allow election. The Jamiat in Sindh, they will see election as a wrong way to reform the society. Some others al-Hadith, they will see jihad in Kashmir. Some won't see it, so they have a separate group. Some will Ghuraba al-Hadith, they have their own ijtihad that when you lead in land of Kufr, you need to have a head of state, even if a minority to which you give bay'ah and zakat. So our groups, it's Tanzimi matters, it's groups matter, and it's issues like politics, elections. And the Deobandi, they have groups like this. They've got a GIF, Maulana Samiullah's group. They've got a Tablighi Jamaat, which is non-political. And they've got Spa Sahaba, which is against the Shia, and Maulana Ludhianvi, he's political as well. They've got Jaish Muhammadi, which is those who believe in Jihad Kashmir. So, coming to this difference in our Tanzim, to make differences in fiqh and differences in like usul and principle, this is 2 different things. So even I have a book, Kalimatul Hadi, it is a book of Mufti Muhammad Isa Khan, Kalima Hadi, and it is signed by Maulana Muhammad Sarfraz Safdar Khan. It is signed by him, and it is a book of a Deobandi, meaning Hayati, they're not Mamati, against Tablighi Jamaat. And it says in it that the Tablighi Jamaat, they've got ghulu about Maulana Muhammad Ilyas, they interpret the verses on jihad to do their khuruj, they do, and they misinterpret the Quran. And also as well, they're too soft on the Brailvis and the Deoband and on the Shia, and he quoted many fatwa of the Deobandi scholar Rashid Ahmad Sharif Ali Tanvi on the Kufr of the Shia Isna Sharia, and on the Kufr of Ahmad Raza Khan, and they're too soft on them, So, they've got a Hayati book criticizing other Hayatis, saying, they don't insist on jihad, they do wrong tawilat, they deny jihad, tablighi jama'at, they're too soft with the people having shirk and bid'ah, those who insult the Sahaba, and they're soft on them. So, they should look at their own houses, how Allah divided them. They say Allah divided the Khair Muqallidin and others. So, they mix up everything. They mix everything to confuse the matter, to confuse the layman. And after he said, oh, the four schools don't have disputes in Aqidah, and these people have disputes in Aqidah. And he mentioned a book of someone about, and he said the three major Salafi scholars. There are three leading scholars, but they're not the men, because Hafiz Muhammad Gondwili, Badiuddin Sharashidi, and Abdullah Ropuri, we believe they have the same level of Shaykh Albani, Ibn Baz, Ibn Usaymin, and likewise Ahmad Shakir, Muhammad Ibrahim Ali Sheikh, Amin Shanqiti. Salafi Alhamdulillah, we've got major scholars, and many of the shuyukh, they said that Hafiz Gondelvi was more knowledgeable than Ibn Baz. Dr. Fazlullah son, he said to me, his father said this. He had an argument in Riyadh on a fiqh issue, and the teacher in Riyadh said, oh, but Ibn Baz said this. He said, look, my teacher's Hafiz Gondelvi, I consider him more knowledgeable than Shaykh Ibn Baz, but I don't follow his saying. I guess when I have a hadith, likewise, some others, Hafiz al-Madni, it is reported that he said that Hafiz Abdullah Ropuri, in general knowledge, was more knowledgeable than Shaykh Albani. Obviously, in one field, Shaykh Albani was excelling in hadith, but obviously Shaykh Shadullah Kasari, Zubair Reza, sometimes they differed with Shaykh Albani and said he's mistaken. Ahmad Shakir and others. This issue, Muhammad Hamid Fiqhi, we have many major scholars who are, we don't, restrict to these three major scholars, but someone wrote a book about the differences between these three scholars. So obviously, he said even they have difference in Aqidah. So obviously I will go through the book and refute in detail these claims. But in the books he should understand that there was a difference about the hadith that Allah created Adam upon his surah, khalaqa lahu Adam ala suratihi. And on this hadith, yes, Shaykh Albani said that the Dhamir, his surah refers to Adam, while the others, Ibn Taymiyyah and the Saudi scholars, they say no, the Dhamir, his, refers to Allah, meaning Allah created Adam upon Allah's image. And Shaykh Albani says, no, Allah created Adam upon Adam's image, meaning first he made his image, then he created him accordingly. So obviously this is a difference, but Shaykh Albani, this is a Juzvi difference, because on the principles of Asma Sifat, they all agree that we do not resort to ta'wil, we accept the apparent meaning, and we leave the kayfiyat to Allah. But because this hadith, it is not clearly said that the dhamir to who it's referring. So there is ijtihad, but Shaykh Albani, there are other hadiths that on Judgment Day Allah will appear in his form. Shaykh Albani does not deny the surah. He only denies this hadith. Obviously, according to the most correct saying, Shaykh Abdullah ibn al-Ghunayman in his Sharh Kitab Tawhid min Sahih Bukhari, he has 40-50 pages on this. And the correct saying is the one of Ibn Taymiyyah and others, that he is referred to Allah, like Allah has a hand and the human has a hand, but obviously they're not similar, but that's what the meaning is. But obviously for Shaykh Albani it is not the meaning. But this difference, even Zubair Ali and others, they take Ibn Khuzayma's ta'wil of this hadith. But this is a Juzvi ikhtilaf, not usuli ikhtilaf, and what he said, with the Ash'ari and Maturidi's differences are semantic, lafzi. And we're going to see this if the differences are lafzi and semantic. This is total ridiculous. The Ahle Hadith, the Salafs, they differed in Juzvi matters. Some they say Allah is with his knowledge with everywhere. Some they said no. Ibn Taymiyyah said no. We don't say Allah. No. Some said Allah is closed by his knowledge. Some they said no. Allah is closed in the heart of the believers. And they have difference about the verse, we are closer than his jugular vein. Some they says the closeness of the angel. Some is Allah's closeness by his knowledge. Ibn Taymiyyah said this is the right interpretation, though it is related to Aqidah. Because the Ma'iyya, Allah being with, it is with knowledge, but not for closeness. So these kind of differences are juzvi, and like I've mentioned some about the attribute of julus, using the word sitting for Allah. Ibn Taymiyyah and then the Saudi scholars, the Hanbali, generally Ibn Simin, they allow this word because they said the narration of the Salaf, the hadith about Allah sitting on the throne, they support each other. Shaykh Albani, Hafiz Zahabi, they said they're weak, so they don't accept this word. But the others, they accept the Sifat Julus. But those who don't accept, some of them even say it's weak, but because the Salaf use this meaning, so it's a tafsir of istiwa according to the Arabic language. Like others, they said it's a tafsir of istiwa to mean istiqrar, settling upon. So they say likewise sitting in the Arabic language, istiwa means sitting. So they say not as attribute, as tafsir of istiwa, we can use the word julus. So these are juzwi ikhtilafat in Aqidah. You know, they are on, and they have the line on it. Like Allah created Adam upon his image. But what is funny is that the Deobandi themselves, you know, some of them were, I mean, Haji Imdadullah Maki in his Shamam Imdadiya, he himself said that the Dhamir, the article refers to Allah, meaning Adam created Allah according to Allah's image. You know, so while the normal Asharis, they say, like Imam Nawawi and others, you know, they say Allah first created the image of Adam, then he created Adam upon his image, meaning image of Adam. You know, they refer the Zamir to Adam Surah. So they themselves differ upon this, you know, the Deobandi Ashari and the Haji Imdadullah Maki. So why they accuse us of differing in Aqidah while they have the same difference in Aqidah? And I've quoted some in my lectures. Mufti Shafi Usmani is saying the hand of Allah means the power of Allah, while Shabir Usmani is saying no, we believe in hand like we believe in knowledge, and others. So they differ in Aqidah, and likewise they say in Muhammad al-Mufannad, for us we believe in hand, face and all these things, but we also allow to istiwa to mean istila, which is the saying of the Mu'tazila, and hand to mean power. So you know they've got two sayings in Aqidah, they differ. I mean, they confuse themselves in their own Aqidah. They are Ash'ari Maturidi. But then he says, our differences are Juzwi, but their differences, they're not Juzwi. They're two different. Why they make two different groups if it is only semantic? You know, we're Salafi, we're one group. Though some might have some differences on Juzvi on small matters, but we're one group. These, they're two, Ash'ari, Maturidi. And if they're semantic, you know, this will need a lecture, you know, about the 30 main differences between the Ash'ari Maturidi. One of the books, they say the other is mistaken, and they quote their arguments. If it was a Juzvi, they wouldn't say the other is mistaken, you know. And in some issues, they even do takfir of each other. Some of the Maturidi Hanafi, they did takfir of the Ash'aris because of the saying on Iman, I am a believer, inshallah. The Aqidah Salafiyah and those of the Ash'ari and the Shafi'i, Hanbali, Maliki, it is correct to say I am a believer, inshallah. For the Ahnaf, because they take action out of Iman, they say for them it's wrong. You know, you must say I am a believer, you mustn't say inshallah. So some of the Maturidi, they did takfir of the Ash'aris. You know, they do takfir of each other's on some issues, not all of the Maturidi, some, and they say it's lafzi ikhtilaf. And we will see after, I will quote some example in this lecture, but this will need, the difference between the Ash'ari Maturidi, it will need a separate lecture. You know, now the 2030, one of the differences, on the taqbiyya, tahsin al-aql, they say each other, you mistaken because we have this dalil, you mistaken because we have this dalil, like the about the soul. You know, after the Prophet died, does he remain a prophet? And why? The Ash'ari Maturidi differ on this. The Ash'ari, because they study Ilm al-Kalam, which is not a satanic knowledge. Ilm al-Kalam. Ilm al-Kalam says Aristotelian creed that everything is either a johar or substance or an accident. So they say prophethood is an accident because it's not a substance. So that's, and for them the accident cannot remain in two time. Al-Ard la yabqa zamanain. So they said the Prophet ﷺ, he had the accident of prophethood, but after his death, how can he have it again? Because it does not remain into two times. So the Ash'ari said after his death, the Prophet ﷺ was a prophet, hukman, meaning by ruling, you know, not in reality. And the Maturidi, they said, oh no, because the prophethood is an attribute of the soul, and the soul does not change after death. So these are two different explanations. This is a difference in Aqidah. And they say, oh no, we don't differ in aqidah. These are two different things, hukman, and this is related to the soul, and this shows as well the falsehood of the Hayati ones. And the Mamati quote these arguments of the Maturidi. Look what the Maturidi Imam say, because for them, after dying, the prophets are alive in the grave, the same life, the Hissi and life. For us, the prophets are alive in a barzakhi life, and they have their attributes, because for us, death does not take their attribute. Prophethood is not an accident for us. We don't follow Aristotle and Plato and all this, na'udhu billah, these people. So what is the Mamati use this argument of, they say, look, the Maturidi Imams, and they quote many of the Maturidi Imams, and we will see in a further lecture, and they say, look, it shows that the Prophet are alive, but a barzakhi life, they're not alive like a hissi life. They can't hear, they have separated, there's a veil between us and them. So we should not go to the grave of the Prophet and ask them for intercession. And there's no the books, Kitab al-Asar, Imam Abu Hanifa, Muhammad ibn Hassan Shaybani, all the books written by Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani and others, Imam of the Ahnaf, they mention everything beneficial to get close to Allah, and they did not mention anything about intercession of Prophet. Like was the 4th, 5th, 6th centuries Mutun of the Hanafi books, they have nothing about this. It was when the Sufism started to spread, and this came from the Shia, this grave worship and pilgrimage on graves and all that stuff. That's why it started to, and people invented narrations of Utbi and others. This practice started, but in the early books of Muwatta Imam Malik, the books of Fiqh, Alum of Imam Shafi'i, Sahih Imam Ahmad, students have many books, Masal Imam Ahmad. Did they forget to teach us to go and seek intercession at the Prophet's grave? Na'uzubillah. So these people, they are muqallidin, they are the enemies of the Imams. They degrade them, they elevate them to the level of Prophet. They don't follow them they do practice of bay'ah, which their Imam didn't tell. They do Sufism, their Imam didn't tell. They do all kinds of stuff. Believe that the Imam, they didn't write any book, but these people believe Ghaus Qutb Abdal, they rule the world and the 7 galaxies, and all of this is done in the caves, and you've got assemblies of saints, and now I don't know what fairy tales, how they try to distort the religion of Islam. So inshallah, we will see these matters. I will just refer to some books, inshallah, today. Quote Ibn Nujam al-Hanafi. He mentioned some of the Maturidi doing takfir of the Ashari, Shafi, and he said it is ugly things, but he mentioned all in his Bahr al-Raiq. One of the main Hanafi, he mentioned a lot of them, and the names of those Imam who did takfir of the others. And they say you should not, Shafi should not marry Hanafi, we should not give them their daughters. We don't give them our daughters. This is a lafzi for Muhammad Yasir. It's a lafzi ikhtilaf, in meaning, a difference in wording. So not only they had differences in aqidah, the Ashari Maturidi, but in fiqh, the differences the muqallidin had, they would not pray behind each other, they would not marry each other, they would curse each other, and would need a separate lecture about this. But I have Fatwa Qadi Khan, one of the main Hanafi books. It is on 6-7 main Hanafi books. It is mentioned in it, and there are conditions about the praying behind the Shafi'i. أما الاقتداء بشفعه ماذا قالوا لا بأس به إذا لم يكن متعصبا ولا شاكا في إيمانه. And then they mention other condition. He said, as for praying behind the Shafi'i, there is no problem if he's not muta'assib, meaning the Shafi'i is not muta'assib. He's not bigoted, and nor is he doubting in his iman, meaning he's not saying I am a believer inshallah, which is their saying. All the Shafi'i believe that you should say I'm a believer inshallah. So and then they mention many other conditions. So there are conditions to pray behind the Shafi'is, na'uzubillah. Qadi Khan, one of the main Hanafi book. Fatwa Hindiya, compiled by hundreds of Hanafi scholars in India. They have many conditions about praying, the Hanafi praying behind the Shafi'i. They said, اقتداء بشافعي المذهب إنما يصح إذا كان الإمام يتحمل مواضيع الخلاف. As for praying behind the Shafi'i, it is only correct, sahih, if he looks after the places of differences between us, like he looks after the impure, what we consider impure and this and that. They mention as well, and في قاضي خان ولا يكون متعصبا ولا شاكا في إيمانه, meaning a difference in aqidah. If he has this, then you can't pray behind him. if he doesn't do wudu with little water, and because of the difference in fiqh, he does not pray one witr, and he does not do wudu with little water, ma qalil, ma musta'mal, to murtashu. And he said, if all that condition, إذا لم تعلم منه هذه الأشياء بيقين يجوز الاقتداء به ويكره. And he said, if all of these conditions are met, then we know with certitude it is allowed to pray behind the Shafi, but it is detested, disliked, ويكره. كذا في الكفاية والنهاية. Okay. Now, because I don't have the book Bahrun Naik, so I will quote it from my computer. But you can see the conclusion. So Ibn Hanafi said in Bahrul Ra'iq, Ibn Jamal Hanafi, أما الصلاة خلف الشافعي, also praying behind the Shafi, فحاصل ما في المجتبى, the conclusion of what is in the book مجتبى, أنه إذا كان مراعيا للشرائط والأركان عندنا, if he respects the conditions and the pillars according to us, فالاقتداء به صحيح على الأصح ويكره, then following them in prayer is correct according to the correct opinion, meaning there's another opinion which is not correct, ويكره, but it is and disliked. So even if the Shafi Imam respects all the conditions and pillar, it will be correct but disliked. وَإِلَّا فَلَا يَسِيهُ أَصْلًا, and if he does not do with impurities and he does not look after these pillars and all this stuff, then it is not allowed to pray behind him at all, aslan. So this is the conclusion reached by Ibn Jain al-Hanafi, that in the chapter of Witr, he speaks about or even those who went to takfir. So he said, okay, about praying behind the people of the other madhab. فحاصل أن صاحب الهداية, the author of Hidayah said, جواز الاقتداء بالشافعي, he allowed praying behind the Shafi, بشرط, meaning with the condition that أن لا يعلم المقتدي منه ما يمنع صحة صلاته في رأي المقتدي. That the one who prays behind the one, he does not know from him what will break the wudu or the prayer according to him. So there is a condition. And then after they mentioned all the other conditions, even they mentioned among some Hanafi books, even mentioning conditions that he does not do Raful Yaden before going in Witr and relying from it. Some they mention other conditions, about purity, fourth head. He mentioned the saying of Qadi Khan, he's not muta'asib, and obviously they mentioned the topic of Iman. Okay, Raful Yadain. But they said this one narration, but for him is Shaz, that doing Raful Yadain will, from Makhul Nasafi, that doing Raful Yadain will make the Salat batil. So for even some of them will say this. So what will break ta'asub? Okay, if it's not muta'asib. Okay, so after they said, فَذَهَبَ طَائِفَةٌ مِنَ الْحَنَفِيَّةِ, a group of the Hanafis, they went to إِلَى تَكْفِيرِ مَنْ قَالَ أَنَا مُؤْمِنٌ إِنشَاءَ. They went to say takfir of the one who says I'm a believer inshallah. And they said, among these scholars, مِنْهُمَ الْإِتْقَانِ فِي غَايَةُ الْبَيَانِ, بِنَا قَوْلُهُ إِنَّ inshallah yarfa'u imanuhu, and he's saying that the saying I'm believer inshallah, it takes away his iman. فَيَبْقَى بِلَا إِمَانٍ, so the person remains without iman. فَلَا يَجُوزُ اقْتَدَى بِهِ, so it is not allowed to pray behind him. And then he mentioned وَذَكَرَ فِي فَتَوَى الظَّاهِرِيَّةِ مِنْ مَوَاعِظِ أَنَّ مُوَاظِبٍ. Okay, then they mention some of their sayings. And then they mentioned, وفي خلاصة والبزازية من كتاب النكاح عن إمام أبي بكر محمد بن الفضل من قال أنا مؤمن إن شاء الله فهو كافر لا تجوز مناكحة معه. Those who say this, they are kafir, it is not allowed to get married with them. قال الشيخ أبو حفص في فوائد لا ينبغي للحنفي أن يزوج بنته من رجل شفعي المذهب. it is not allowed for Hanafi to marry his daughter to someone of the Shafi mazhab. وَكَذَا قَالَ بَعْضُ مَشَيِخِنَا. And this is the saying of some of our mashayikh. وَذَهَبَ طَائِفَةٌ إِلَى تَكْفِيرِ مَنْ شَكَ مِنْهُمْ فِي إِيمَانِهِ بِقَوْلِ أَنَا مُؤْمِنٌ إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ وَجُوشٍ. So, all these conditions are mentioned, all of this is detailed, and inshallah it will come further in the lecture. All the fast saying that the taqlid, you cannot write a new history. The muqallidin, they have a dark history. And not if they're ashamed of it, and they want to propagate that taqlid is harmony and the Ahle Hadith are the fitna makers, this won't work, because you despise each other, you did not pray behind each other, you have conditions to pray behind each other, you do takfir of each other, some of you scholars, you don't marry your daughters to each other. Fatwa ibn Abidin al-Shami, one of the greater authority among the Hanafi mazhab. So we've seen Alamgiriya, Qaduri, the other one, they also mentioned Hidayah, which is one of the main books studied. And this one as well, in Kitab Matlab fi iqtida bi Shafi'i wa nahwihi, hal yukrahu am la? Following a Shafi'i Imam, is it disliked or not? So he said it is allowed as long as we don't know something from him what will break the prayer. They only differ about whether it's disliked or not, and then they went all the other things that were mentioned before. That some they say it's makruh, some they say it's haram, some they've added conditions, you must not do this, you must not do that. So we can see that tarikh. After he's got the chapter Matlab إذا صلى الشافعي قبل الحنفي هل أفضل الصلاة مع الشافعي أم لا? So this one I will need to read all of this, but this, subhanallah, how Allah misguided these muqallidin. They say if the Shafi, you're in the masjid and the Shafi is praying first, is it better to pray with the first Imam or wait for, because what they had started in Syria and even they started this bid'ah in Mecca and Medina and in Egypt, is that in the same masjid they will have 4 different congregations. So first this one will pray, the others will sit down and wait, then this one will pray the whole, then this one, then the Hanafi will pray, then the Shafi will pray. Even Sheikh Al-Albani, he mentioned this when he was in Syria, his father will pray with the Hanafi and he will pray with the Shafi, and his father said, why are you praying with the Shafi? So obviously this bid'ah, and they contradict their Imam, because according to Ibn Nujam, he said that what is best is following the Shafi. Because for them لأن تكرار جماعة في مسجد واحد مكروه عندنا على المعتمد. He said because according to the Hanafi fiqh, having 2 congregations in one masjid, it is makruh, meaning forbidden for them. In the Hanafi, Maliki and Shafi'i, you cannot pray in the masajid who have a fixed imam. You cannot make 2 congregations. Only those masajid who are on motorways on the street who don't have any fixed imam, any group that come, they can make their jama'ah. But those masajid that have fixed imams, they're not masjid of the street or markets, these ones, only the Hanabila allow to jama'ah. The others they forbid. But the muqallidun, they disobeyed their imam in this. Imam Ibn Nujam said it is makruh for us, so it is better to pray with the Shafi. But many others, they said no. So they disobeyed their mazhab, but they say it's better to pray behind the Shafi because it is praying behind Shafi is makruh. So he mentioned after all the scholars, all the Hanafi scholars, and he just saw, though he mentioned many of the mashayikh who prayed in the haram behind the Shafi'i, and he said that Allama Shaykh Ibrahim al-Biri, he opposed them based upon the dislike of following them because of the lack of looking after the obligations and the sunnah, Shaykh Ibrahim Bihi, and that praying alone is better. وَلِنَ الْإِنْفِرَادَ أَفْضَلُ وَلَوْ لَمْ يُدْرِكِ إِمَامَ مَذْهَبِهِ. And he said even Shaykh Rahmatullah Sindi, meaning the author of Izharul Haq, the student of Humam, he said al-ihtiyat fi adam al-iqtida bihi wala mura'in, and he said the precaution is in not following them, meaning the Shafi, even if they look after the conditions. وكذا العلامة مولا لقاري قلب ما قدم Mullah Ali Qari, he said that okay, it's not makruh to pray behind the Shafi, but he says ولو كان لكل مذهب إمام كما في زماننا فالأفضل اقتداء بالموافق وسواء تقدم أو تأخر على ما استحسنه عامة المسلمين وعمل به جمهور المؤمنين من أهل الحرمين والقدس والمصر والشام ولا عبرة بمن شذ منهم. So Mullah Ali Qari, he said, for him it's not makruh to pray behind the Shafi, but he said if each madhab has one imam, then waiting for you whether he comes before or first, it is better, because most of the Muslim, they opted for this. Most of the believers in the two haram, in the Quds, in Jerusalem, in Misr and Sham, and we do not look at those who oppose this, you know. What kind of religion is this? They leave Imam Abu Hanifa, they betray their imams. When authentic hadith comes, they will say, oh, this hadith must be abrogated because our imam, he did, we must interpret this hadith, we must, we can't act upon the hadith. No. But when their imam says it's makruh to have two jama'ah, they say, no, it's better to pray behind the Hanafi and oppose your imam, because the majority of the muqallidun in the Holy Lands, in Jerusalem, they betrayed their imam and started this bid'ah, this innovation in the deen, and this was done by most of them. So this is what Fatwa Shami mentioned. So this is a dark history, and the lafz ikhtilafat and the peaceful taqleed and all the fairy tales. And as well, when I mention what these people forget to mention, all the books of fiqh, what they contain, obviously some of them contain the saying of their imams, but some of the sayings are not sayings of their imams. Some of the sayings are sayings of later fuqaha, and obviously even some of the sayings are of their imams, but they're based on ijtihad and qiyas. Like in Fatwa al-Amgiriya, there's a fatwa of one of the imam of Abu Hanifa who gives you a trick to avoid to paying zakat. He says you give your zakat before the appointed time to children. For the Ahnaf, there's no zakat on the children, and after the appointing time, the whole, you take it back. For them, you can take back the gift from the children. So no such fatwa, the Sahaba, they did not have such fatwa of tricks. So these fatwa are present. Likewise, some of the Shah's opinions for which the scholars criticize Imam Abu Hanifa, like doing riba in Darul Harb, as mentioned in Hidayah, and there is no had for the one who pays a woman to do zina, and other sayings attributed to Imam that if a lady does zina with a non-baligh or with an insane, there's no had. All these things, they do not come, in that chapter of Hudud, all from the ikhtilaf of Sahaba. None of them can say this. These ikhtilafat they mentioned in the book of fiqh of the four imams, Shafi not praying behind Hanafi, they do not come from the imam. And as well, one of the mufti in Pakistan, he gave a fatwa that when the women go to Mecca, it is not allowed for them to pray behind the Hanbali, because among the conditions the Hanafi madhab has is the imam must make a special intention in his brain to incorporate the woman behind him. And he said, I went to the Saudi Lajna and Hayya Kibar, and they don't, in the Hanbali mazhab, they don't have this special condition. So this is one of their conditions, that the imam must make a specific intention to have followers, and if he has woman, he must make a specific one for woman to incorporate them. Because for them, the one who's behind, he does not read the prayer, so the imam carries this obligation for them. They just remain silent, even when the imam is reciting silently. So they say for us it's a condition. So for the Hanafi woman, it is not allowed to pray in the haram behind the Hanbali imam. Shaykh Aminullah Peshabri mentioned this fatwa. So such fatwa, they're not mentioned by the Sahaba. When you go to pray behind another Sahabi, if he did not mention intention of woman, you don't pray your woman behind them. So saying all the differences, many of the differences, that deduction from the fuqaha, from the rules they established to deduce they deduce rulings from the Quran and Sunnah, and they cannot bring any sayings of the Sahaba saying such, such rulings, that the Imam must intend to incorporate the woman behind him, else, the praying of the Hanafi woman will be batil. For Jama'ah in one masjid, none of the Sahaba, this comes from the Muqallideen. Okay, ribadal or harb, and the woman, no had for the one who pays a woman for if you pay a woman to do zina, there's no had. This is attributed to Imam Abu Hanifa. it is clearly mentioned in the Hanafi book of fiqh. I have fatwa Hasha ibn Abidin, which is explanation of Dur al-Mukhtar of al-Maskafi, and he said وَلَا حَدَّ بِزِنَا بِالْمُسْتَأْجَرَ لَهُ, there is no had for the one who does zina with the woman he pays for, أي لزنا. And but this is to Murtashi what he said, but obviously the Imam al-Haskafi, he said وَالْحَقْ وُجُوبُ الْحَدِّ كَالْمُسْتَأْجَرَ لِخِدْمَةِ. He said, but the truth is there is had. And Allama ibn Abidin, he said in explanation, وَالْحَقْ وُجُوبُ الْحَدِّ أي كما هو قولهما, meaning as it is the saying of the two students, and this is the research of the author of Fath. وَسَكَتَ عَلَيْهِ فِي النَّهْرِ وَالْمُتُونَ وَالْشُرُوعَ عَلَى الْقَوْلِ إِمَامٍ. But he said, but the mutun, the text and the explanations are upon the saying of the Imam. So this saying of Imam Abu Hanifa, many others, they're not accepted. They don't have any basis from the Sahaba. And obviously, like the halala, the woman who does the she just need to go back to her husband. She just need to hire a man and do a nikah with them. The halala, what they call nikah tahlil. Ibn al-Qayyim Juzay has a lengthy refutation of it in his I'lam al-Muwaqqi'in. And likewise, one تحتوي على مرق فلا نور الإذا. They have the tartib who should be the imam first, and among the condition, the one who is recite the best the Quran, then the older, then after they have فالأحسن زوجة, the one whose wife is the most beautiful, and then he explained it as the one who loves the most his wife, okay, and then the one who has the biggest head, okay, and the one who has the smallest member was غروهم عضوا. وفسر بعض المشايخ لما تحتوي, he wrote in it that some of our scholars, they interpreted this small member to be the penis. لأن كبره الفاحش يدل غالبا على دناءة الأصل, because it being big, extremely big, shows the low kind of lineage, family lineage. Now, Allah made some people with how they are, but for them, in the right of the Imam, it should be the one who has the little. Some of the Mashaykh, they said it, the one who has the biggest head and the little member. Now, so shall we accept these things mentioned in Hanafi book of fiqh as differences from the Sahaba? And I mentioned in my refutation Mumtazullah, Fatwa Qadi Khan, and others, if your nose is bleeding and does not stop, you can write Surah Fatiha with blood or urine, na'udhu on your forehead. Does this come from the Sahaba, na'udhu? Fatwa Qadi Khan. They have fatwa that in Qadi Khan, that a woman knows that her husband gave him 3-time divorce, but he denies it. He gave him 3-time divorces, let's say in 3 different times. So he divorced her, but then he denies it and he wants to do with her his business. And she wants to stop him because she knows he divorced him but does not let her go. فَيُبَاهُ لَهَا الْقَتْلِ, it is allowed for her to kill him. ولكن ينبغي أن تقتله لا بآلات القتل لأنها, but she should not kill him with the instruments of killing, like with the knife and others. Because if she does it, then she will be killed in retaliation. So that they tell her she must use some medicine, meaning she must poison this man. Look, this saying does not come from the Sahaba of the Tabi. This comes from the Hanafi fuqaha, And why does she need to, if a husband gave her 3 divorces, meaning she is divorced in 3 different sittings, and if he refuses and denies it after he wants to do his business with her, she can go to the Qadi and get a khula and other things. What does she need to kill her husband? So this is the Ahle Rai. And then there's another ruling, mentioned in Qadi Khan. Look, the speculation they make about this issue is that if a man says to his husband, my private part is more beautiful than yours, then you're divorced. And they said, قال Imam Abu al-Fadl, Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn al-Fadl, that if they were sitting, then this one will be right, and if they were both sitting, then You know, if he says, if my private parts are more beautiful, then you will be divorced. Then this will happen if they're both standing, they will have a different ruling. If they're both sitting, there will be different ruling. Is these rulings coming from Abu al-Fadl? It is ruling coming from Abu Bakr Muhammad ibn al-Fadl, coming from a difference from the Sahaba. You know, these ridiculous rulings. I mean, you know, Allah made the both of private parts beautiful. We can't, I mean, this is the stupidity to say some of them is most beautiful in a sitting position, the man's is most beautiful in a standing one. So these sayings of the fuqaha, you know, not all of them result from the differences among Sahaba. And this is why we criticize such fatwa. This is why we teach people to follow Quran and Sunnah and not to stick to the books of fuqaha. But obviously one can learn the fiqh of the Imam with the dalil, but not to do blind taqlid. So inshallah we'll conclude this lecture to this, but inshallah in further lectures, I mean, I will go in detail about you know, the dangerous taqlid, the strange fatwas, you know, of the muqallidin, and even some fatwa for which Imam Abu Hanifa was criticized by other Imam of the Salaf. And as well, I will go in length about the difference between the Ash'ari and Maturidi and show that they're not semantic the differences, but they're real differences. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide the muqallidin for them to make tawbah, not to propagate fairy tales. And you know, if they want to challenge, inshallah I will make a lecture on Ibn Arabi and quote from him, you know, but he's saying that Abu Bakr will be under his banner on Judgment Day. The idol worshippers will, you know, that they were drawn in ocean of knowledge. You know, if you want challenges, you can refute this video. You mean you sell these books, you propagate it, Pharaoh died upon Iman, and all of the kufriyat and shirkiyat contained in the Fusus al-Hikam, you know. Or you, if you want, you can justify to us the naked saints and the majzub saints ruling the world present in the book of Ashraf Ali Thanvi. So, you know, I mean, maybe, you know, you should not watch too many movies. And Mohammad Yasir would advise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides him and the Deobandi. You know, our aim is not to ridicule or attack any imam, but it's to show the reality of history, how it was. You know, some of the differences are legitimate. Some of them, they were criticized, Imam Abu Hanifa, by others. And this is the reality. We cannot change history. And some of the differences are legitimate, come from difference among Sahaba, but some of them are not, and they were criticized by the Salaf. But those among, at that time living, they would criticize them. That, look, your opinion is weak, this hadith should act upon it. Imam Waqi said to him, you should be in jail. I said to you, the Prophet did ishara, and you said to me, Ibrahim Nakhi and Abu Hanifa say it's a mutilation. So this is the way of the Salaf. You know, it is to follow Quran and Sunnah in this meaning, you know, not in the meaning that we don't learn the sayings of the fuqaha and the great Imam Ahmad Shafi'i and Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Nazir Hussain Delvi praised him, and all our great scholars praise his great Imam in fiqh. But obviously he did he missed many hadith, so we have to follow the correct hadith, you know. There are many hadiths about permissibility of eating horse meat. You know, we have to eat horse meat if we don't know any hadith forbidding horse meat. You know, clear hadith. We cannot reject the revelation present in Bukhari Muslim, upon which the Ummah agreed on their authenticity. It has talaqi bil qabul. We cannot reject, even if we're small students of knowledge, we're learning the deen at the same time. But when a clear hadith comes, Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim mentioned many of these examples, you know, and all this fatwa of tricks and others, we can you know, criticize them like the Salaf used to. Imam Bukhari criticized them, reciting I mean, even they have some fatwa about reciting Fatiha, Surah Fatiha in Persian language. I mean, many others we will see in languages. So I'll conclude with this. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin